So, yep, I'm Gary Edgar, and we're going to go ahead and talk about Allegiant Stadium, and we're going to talk a little bit about metal coatings, the factory applied metal coatings, but also some of the air dry coatings that go along with the stadium, right? I mean, we do all the factory applied, and that's where Gary gets paid. But also the air dry stuff, the halls and wall paint that the stadium uses, that's all supplied by PPG. So we know about Gary, we know about Chris. A little bit about our learning objectives we're going to talk about the stadium, we're going to learn a little bit about life cycle, coatings on a building, we're going to learn a little bit about heat reflective, how it saves energy, and we're going to talk a little bit about color and some of the technologies that can be captured and the effects with color. But first we're going to talk a little bit about PPG. Pittsburgh. That's right.
We got 6. They got to work on yours.
That's all right. That's okay. We can take that right now.
I can take it. Yeah.
You can take anything. I like that. I like that.
Everybody's got to share for their own team.
PPG. You know what PPG stands for? Yeah, he's the Pittsburgh Paints. Yeah, Pittsburgh Paints glass. Actually, in 1883, we're 140 years old this year. 140 years. We look pretty good, don't we? No one's smiling. Pittsburgh plate glass is what it was started. Now today PPG just stands for PPG, and we're all about coatings. So founded in 1883, 50,000 employees, and we're global. So our portfolio, we actually do performance coatings and industrial coatings. And real quick to separate that, the performance coatings are more air dry products. So they're applied in the field and or factories, but they cure by chemical, right? And then the industrial coatings are more factory applied and cure by heat, maybe. So we do vehicles, right? Equipment, you're probably familiar with some of these brands, some of these components, but we're really going to talk about today about coil and building products. This slide's killing me. So a couple of things that we enhance. Just off the cuff, probably your cell phone. We coat your cell phones, your computers. Again, we talked about halls and walls, pots and pans, office equipment, Titleist golf balls, all sorts of different things. And again, we do pre-treatments, electrocoat, liquid coatings, powder coatings, ultraviolet UV, electrobeam coatings, cured coatings, and we also do coating services. So we also actually put in coating lines to help our applicators. We're a leader in innovation, sustainability, and color. Our headquarters for innovation is in Allison Park. We spend at least 3% of our income on R&D, 3,500 technicians, and we have over 500 patents in the last 10 years. And so our goal is for sustainability is to have 40% of our sales of our products be sustainable. And then we also do our color of the year. This year, the color of the year for 2023 was Viney Ivy, which is a green. And we also just came out with our new one for 2024. And we also participate with our colorful communities. So PPG will donate the paint, get our people together, actually work with some of our customers and go out and paint schools, hospitals, throughout the communities. We've done 42 since 2015.
Why do our 50,000 employees come to work every day? To help communities come together and grow in more inspiring spaces. To preserve the environment for future generations. To protect the world around us from the elements and everything else. At PPG, what drives us is our purpose. Our passion to create products that protect and beautify what matters most to you. Products that enable you to make a home that's distinctively yours. To show off your personality. To make lasting memories like this. and to rest a little easier. At PPG, our family of researchers, chemists, and professionals in more than 70 countries around the world have one purpose. We protect and beautify the world.
So that's a little bit about PPG. So we're going to talk a little bit about our metal coatings. So we talk about coil applications, metal con. There's a lot of coil applications, but there's also air dry and extrusion applications. So when we fall into these lines of AMA specs, even though AMA doesn't cover ferrous metal, for aluminum, the products that really fall into that are our Duranar, which has been around since 1967. We have a Durastar and our Duraform. So we have products for all the performance requirements for AMA. And we talked a little bit about Duranar since 1967. We have actually our ultra cool coatings, which we're going to talk about that a little bit today. Our Durastar coatings, which is our SMP product, actually uses the same pigments as our Duranar fluoropolymer. And then a little bit about just our extrusion products for AMA 2603, 4, and 5. We have powder and liquid for that. So the extrusion products are certainly like these door frames. If you're not familiar, the extruded products, and that's a spray version. So we have powder and liquid for both of those. And again, our name brand for that 70% PVDF, the 2605, is our Duranar coating. And then we have a new product that's our Coroflon Platinum. It's an FEVE powder. It's a one-coat powder. And again, these products all have the same warranty as the liquid. And then we have an air dry. So you wonder what the air dry, about the whole air dry piece, but if you have to do touch-up or if you have to do rehab on an existing building, you can go back with these products and get similar performance long-term. So if you paint a building, if you do an addition, the new metal and the existing metal you can recoat in the field. 10, 15 years you go back, everything looks the same. PPG metal coatings, you can find all sorts of information on there about our products. And again, we talked about our learning objectives. So this is an AIA credited presentation. And we're going to let it begin. So when we talk about Allegiant Stadium and PPG, a couple things that were required for Allegiant, right? That the colors match the NFL, right? The Las Vegas Raiders, the colors, the Pantone colors, the colors had to be exact. You talk about long-term durability. The stadium holds 65,000. Sounds like you guys are growing though. Are you going to try to increase that?
We're going to get as many as we can. We're trying to go bigger and better.
So you think about a stadium, right? And they build the stadium and then, oh, we got the new car, it's done. Well, 3 years, you guys are constantly building on that, right? Doing additions and adding space.
Yeah, and I think that's an important part of, the relationship with PPG and really any facility. I think the old school mentality of you build an NFL stadium, you play 10 home games, hopefully more if you get to a playoff game. It shuts down from February to July, come back in August, and you get going again. The economics of building a stadium don't work like that anymore. I'll get into more about Allegiant Stadium, but I view what we do at our building. We're a convention center that hosts sporting events. We are busy 365 days a year. Raider games are only 10 of those days. So the programming that takes place to drive the economics, to make the money, to bring people in, we're in a city that has 365 hospitalities. So what we do in that building is great, but the wear and tear of what goes on every single day, people expect to walk in our building and see a pristine, perfect, the colors are exactly the way they need to be. So it's really changed how buildings operate and what it takes to maintain the look and feel of when you walk in and say, wow, this place looks brand new. We're in year 3 of operation, but I think if you walked in today, you wouldn't feel that way.
Yeah, so that's great stuff. So when we talk about materials that can be easily cleaned and or repaired, and we just talked about renovations, right? So we have the existing, we're building something new, we want everything to match. It's good stuff. And then we talk about the long-term durability and maybe a little bit about how energy savings could be captured. I mean, we are in Vegas. It is hot. Raiders' colors are black and silver.
Wait, that's the absence of color. Black isn't a color.
Black isn't a color, it's the absence of color. It's not the absence of heat though, is it?
No, it's not.
It's hot.
The sun always wins.
So that's what we talk about. So, different areas of application. We talk about the exterior, a roof, the roof coatings, a little bit about, the non-skid coatings, fire protection of all that steel, the structural steel, and certainly the curtain wall panels. So when Chris talked about the colors, the Raiders actually sent us a uniform and a helmet to match in our lab in Springdale. So these three technicians, Christine, Tom, and Jimmy, they have over 75 years of experience matching colors. So trying to get those colors matched right perfectly, it took us a little bit of time. We had to do a couple submissions. We had to get the flake right in that silver. We had to get the right tone. Black is black. Black is not black. There's every color is different. So it took us a little while. But from this lab, we went ahead and matched all our other colors that we use conventionally for the halls, the walls, the floor, the trophies, everything. It's pretty cool stuff. So just so you realize, maybe you don't, maybe you do, but we're talking about the factory applied coatings. You see the coil application. So that's more or less the exterior of Allegiant Stadium, but then you see the extrusions. And the extrusions are hanging here. This is a vertical line that's being sprayed. And that's for all the door frames, miscellaneous metal, and things that go on. And then there's also touch-up. But we talk about the stadium, and it's like, well, Gary, there's black and there's silver. Well, there was white and another white, because everybody wants what they want, some of these designers. But there's a lot of codes up there. But we have different codes for the coil side and the extrusion side, but we also have many different codes on the extrusion side to make sure it matches. So as we say that, why does it match? Because you can just go to Home Depot, get some black paint, I can roll it out and give it to my man Steve over there, he can roll it out, right? This guy right here, he's a spray man, I can tell.
Sometimes.
But it's all going to look the same. But when we go to these applications on our extrusion line, and this little thing's a disc and it's putting on, then some people are doing a hand spray, you have to adjust the color. Because again, all these pieces are coming from all over the world, all over the country, different applicators, different times of day. We want to make sure that the color is consistent. So that's why we formulate. So even though you think it's really easy, we actually did several different matches, and there's several different variations of all these colors. So again, when we just talked about the different applications, right? Extrusion, we have many different applicators there that do the spray application. Coil side, many different applicators there, but actually most of the metal came from PPG Korea, so they had to match that. So keeping the pigments from another country and here in the US, everything being consistent, bringing all that together is challenging. We had over 80 requests for different samples of colors, variations. So touch-up. That touch-up doesn't look too good, does it? Everybody's kind of looking at it. Actually, that touch-up looked the same. So when this roof was turned over, everything matched. The owner signed off on it, everything was great. A few years later though, they used a coating that doesn't have the same type of performance, and then it starts to fade and chalk, right? Turns color, so it looks like a leopard. So next time you're out looking around at buildings and you see, hey, what's all that squiggly stuff over there? Well, that's the touch-up paint that was used originally, and it didn't hold up. It didn't have the same performance. So it's important between factory applications and field applications that you get the right technology. You fall back into something that's going to give you similar performance long term. Just the opposite's the case too. If you use some of our air dry, this stuff is about $650 a gallon, but it doesn't fade, it doesn't chalk. We give long-term warranties. But if you use that on a conventional coating outside, you would come back and the conventional coating would be faded and chalked, and then that little spot you touched up with the high-end coating would still look good. So that doesn't work either. So you want to make sure you match the technologies and the performance when you do touch-up. And there, see, there's a couple more codes. We matched the black and the silver for touch-up. Because believe it or not, somebody did get a little squirrely out there and run into the side of the building with their lift and took out 14 panels. So we had to go back and touch up with ADS. So you go there today, and you can't tell. It's good stuff. And the neat thing is it's going to last as long as the factory applied coatings. What do you think, Chris?
I think you did a good job. I think I'm going to take over for a little bit.
I'm not done. But you're done. Here you go.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about Allegiant Stadium. Again, the least qualified person in this room given the material you guys are working with, but I figured you guys are here in Vegas. I'm going to talk a little bit about what makes our building unique, what makes it special, what are just some of the characteristics about it that I think make it just really one of the most unique buildings in the world. And kind of going off what Gary said, you know, you saw the photo of the jerseys and the helmet. I can't stress the importance of, I know it's silver and black, but the complexities of not all silvers are the same. You know, how does it look on, you know, when it gets painted on? Are there, you know, tints of blue that come out? Really important for the brand. So it was a labor of love. There was a lot of back and forth. And even, you know, an ownership group that, you know, you try to give them a swatch like how you go to, you know, Home Depot, you're trying to look on a little, you know, little sample. That wasn't good enough for him. We had to paint full walls. He wanted to see how it was going to look in the building. So really happy with the product that we came out with, but it was not an easy task to really take the shield and make it come to life in the way that we wanted. And coming from a building in Oakland where we were sharing with the A's and you had green everywhere, it just was our chance to kind of make our stadium unique to the Raiders. So when we talk a little bit about Allegiant Stadium, what were kind of the design criteria? What were we looking for? So if you look back, history of the Raiders, Al Davis, he always drafted the fastest players. He wanted speed. So when we were kind of coming up with the design, you know, has anyone been to Allegiant Stadium?
Drove by it today.
You drove by it. So the illusion that we wanted to create was sports car, fast, modern. That black glass with the swoops really gives the appearance of luxury, speed. So that's kind of the vision of what we designed for. So I'm going to talk through some of the key elements, things that were unique to Vegas, things that we needed to kind of get in the building. First is our roof. You know, we went a lot of debate of, do we need a roof? Do we not go roof? Is it retractable? After we really studied what made sense here in this market, we decided to go with an ETFE fixed roof. So the roof is not retractable. Does anyone know what ETFE stands for? All right, perfect. ETFE is a material called ethylene tetrafluoroethylene. It's a very lightweight plastic. It's almost like a pillow enclosed system, so there's air kind of being introduced into that element, and it really gives the effect of allowing some natural light into the building, but it also creates a very consistent lighting within the building. So if you watch a Raider game, you're not going to see any shadowing on our field. You know, Hunter Renfrow, our punt returner, is not going to drop the ball because he's got to worry about sun coming into his eyes. So that design of the ETFE roof was very important to the guest experience. You know, it is a very warm climate here, so just trying to also maintain the cooling within the building. So there's about 107 pillows, and it kind of feels like a little trampoline if you were to walk across. So that's kind of the roof that we ended up going with. Next, talking a little bit about the field. Raiders' first year was 1961. We were an AFL team. We played on grass. Our organization feels like grass is the only surface that football should be played in. So how do you grow natural grass in an indoor stadium? It's a little bit difficult. So we came up with a system where we actually grow the grass on the outside of the building, and then we slide it in for game days. So on most days out of the year, the grass lives outside. If we got a Sunday game Friday night, we'll bring in the field tray, and we'll actually play our games on natural grass. You can kind of see a little bit of a video here. You'll kind of see what that looks like. The tray just slides all the way into the building. So one of those things that was actually the first decision we made when we designed the stadium, was that we were going to have natural grass be the main surface that we were going to play on. So with that, it's about 19 million pounds. There's 72 motors underneath the tray that propel it inside the stadium, and it takes about 90 minutes to go from the grow position inside. So it's really cool technology. We're not the only stadium that's done it. If you've been to Arizona, they have a similar system. We took their system and kind of gave it steroids, so it operates much more efficiently, and it's a great method. And I think if you ask the players prefer grass. There's a lot of debate on artificial turf versus grass. We wanted to make sure we had the best surface for our players.
Chris, how many is that the only field you have for that? Is that the only surface?
So within the building, that's a great question. We actually do lay out artificial turf as well. So we do, UNLV football does play in Allegiant Stadium. They actually prefer to play on artificial turf. So we do have the ability to go off from artificial turf all the way to grass as well. So it gives us a little bit of flexibility as well. And then when we do a concert, we can take the turf up, and then the concert will just load into the concrete floor that's in our building. So another key element of our building, the peristyle end. So if you get the pleasure of visiting Allegiant Stadium, we wanted to really pay homage to all the different buildings that we've played in. So if you've been to the LA Memorial Coliseum, we wanted to kind of create an area that, respected that and kind of gave that. So on the north end of the building, we actually have retractable lanai doors that actually open up. So we've never use them for a football game, but there are days when the weather's perfect here in Vegas. I would say our sweet spot is from now till about December, and then April and May you'll get some really great days where you can actually open those doors, and it kind of gives you that indoor-outdoor element because we don't have a retractable roof. So, and it really, we knew the Vegas skyline is iconic, and we wanted to do something in our stadium that connected Allegiant Stadium to that. So those doors look right out on the strip, and it's one of the best views. I can't think of another stadium that has a better, more iconic view than what we created. And then the Al Davis Memorial Torch. So every stadium has one piece of architecture, something that is kind of that piece of art or something that draws everyone in. And for us, it was the Al Davis Memorial Torch. It's the largest 3D printed structure in the world. So in order to really get the architecture of what we were looking for, we did 3D printing as the technology to get that torch into place. And a lot of owners and famous people get a statue outside the stadium. And for our owner, he didn't think that was appropriate for Al Davis. One of the most famous quotes that Al Davis said was, "The fire that burns brightest in the Raiders organization is the will to win." So that torch is very symbolic of that quote. And then finally, talking about the guest experience. You can have the nicest stadium in the world, you can have all the different features, but if the guest experience isn't the focus of what you do, you're not gonna be successful. And I think our #1 voice of the fan rating for all stadiums in the NFL speaks to that. And really we wanted to make sure the technology met the needs of the fans. People want to be on their cell phones, they want to order from their seats, so those are all incorporated into the guest experience. Really speed of service, we want people in their seats enjoying the game, not having to worry about ordering and going to the bathroom. We wanted people in their seats to enjoy. And then really obviously designing really great club and premium space. So we have 9 different luxury clubs, really catering to groups that want to entertain and show off a great experience. And then here's some basic just facts about the stadium. We're about a $1.9 billion in total cost to build, which if you would have told me at the start that we, for $1.9 billion, I would have thought we would have gotten everything that we wanted, but we quickly found out we had to value engineer certain things out, and I think we made our money work very well, but it's very misleading. $1.9 billion went pretty fast, and the stadium took a lot of money, but we're really happy with the final product. And then I put some different facts and figures here on the screen. If you love Jeopardy and you want to get some fun facts that you can bring back home, these are some cool ones that I think is just really cool. And one that I like to focus on, especially for the guest experience, elevators and escalators. In Oakland, we had half of a functioning escalator and 3.5 elevators. Like they're just, getting people up and down in the building can be very challenging. So being able to design that in, making sure people can get to where they need to go again, and that speed of service, getting to where you need to go fast, really, really impressive. So that's a little bit about Allegiant Stadium. I hope you guys get to visit at some point. I think really proud of kind of what we did. We are hosting the Super Bowl this year, so on TV, even if you're not there, you get to maybe, talk about some fun facts that you learned about what makes the building so unique and special and why we're so proud of it. And I forgot to ask, are there any Raider fans in here? I didn't think that there were going to be many, but
come on now.
Give us a tour of the building and we may change.
I wish I had if you go over, the team store is open. You can walk in and see it. So it is a fun place to visit. So
Yeah.
And really, what I mentioned earlier is that it is a stadium, but it is so much more. I mean, the amount of private events, concerts, we're doing 40 plus major events a year. We've got stadium tours every single day. I mean, the amount of dark days that we have are just non-existent, which makes it tough when you're trying to continually improve the maintenance, when you're trying to keep it upkept, and you've always got people inside. So it's part of our challenge, but I'd rather be busy than not have enough events. So keeps us on our toes.
How many does it seat?
Our stadium seats about 65,000. It can vary depending on some different events. A center stage concert, we can get up to about 74,000. So
Taylor Swift in, you can put 75,000 people in.
if she were to put a stage in the middle, we would have probably put 90,000. We would have filled it up even more. But it just kind of depends on every event. Things can kind of operate a little bit differently.
That's great stuff, Chris.
So I know that had nothing to do with probably why you're here, but hopefully you guys learned a little bit about our stadium and kind of what we're all about.
No, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. And you talk about, 3 years ago that the stadium was built, but right now you have 19 panels that are coming off, and they're putting fiberglass panels in. And we're going to paint those with Chloroflon ADS. And the reason they need fiberglass panels is because they need more bandwidth. So people can order their food, they can do their phone, more antennas, but the antennas aren't going on the roof, right? They're going in behind the skin. So with fiberglass, it'll go through that, and then again, we're painting with an air dry system behind it. So, it's interesting, once you think you're done, it just keeps evolving, keeps moving forward.
So you're taking 19 perfectly good panels off and putting in 19 fiberglass over.
Exactly, because they're putting antennas behind that, and the antennas,
Pass through.
they can't get through.
Radio
Exactly.
inside the building because it doesn't block it.
Yep.
3 years old, you're replacing it over.
19 panels, there's a lot of panels on that though. It's no big deal. We got a little video.
It's been incredible to see multiple sectors of our business come together on the construction of Allegiant Stadium. The last 2 years of construction were really just the beginning. We've been extremely proud that our paints, coatings, and specialty materials have played an essential role throughout the construction of Allegiant Stadium.
PPG comes with a stellar reputation. Obviously, they're in many, many stadiums and arenas throughout the world. We knew that coming into it, so when they partnered with us, we knew what their capabilities were.
Our partnership with the Las Vegas Raiders has been a true model for how our business and their business come together to create Allegiant Stadium.
PPG, the official paints of the Raiders Stadium, so Allegiant Stadium. That's good stuff. So, you know, you saw different applications in there, some of our PMC products, our air dry products, and then you saw some of our factory applied products. So a lot of that coming together. So when we talk about just a little bit about the heat, we talked about the heat in Vegas, we talked about the black panels, and we're going to talk a little bit about cool roofing technology and island urban heat. And if you can, you take a look at this picture, you can see the heat around some of these cities, right? Baltimore, New York, Buffalo, and it continues to get worse. So the island heat effect is, you know, certainly around cities, right? With all the blacktop, concrete, and then all the metal buildings, and the heat around the city just rises 10 to 20% more than outside the city, depending on where you're at. And it's called the urban island effect. So you can see, again, you know, once you get out away from the city, it cools down, but certainly those buildings and the asphalt and the concrete hold that heat in. So to keep that cooler, right, to cool that down takes more energy in the city. So actually, cool roofing, the origin started in California with the rolling blackouts. And so the governor, Pete Wilson, set aside $61 million to do research and trying to figure out a solution. Right? Some of these pigments are used in military and aerospace, and they wanted to see if they could actually use that in heat reflective coatings for roofs. So again, we can talk about the origins of IR reflective pigments. There's natural, the military, and the camouflage. So the IR pigments are transparent. Aerospace has used those for a long time. The pigments actually look black, but they're not. They're actually, the light actually goes through them, and and the base coat actually reflects the heat from that. So even though it looks black, it's really not black. So the transparency allows for 90% of the sun's energy to pass through the top coat, but it bounces off, so it doesn't hit the substrate. So IR pigments, you know, used in cool roofing. They're complex and organic colored pigments. So they're actually known as ceramics, and they're cured or fired over 1,000 degrees. So one thing with these pigments is you want to make sure that they're going to last a long time, especially on roofs, and they can take the UV intensity. So there's 3 regions of the light spectrum with the heat: the ultraviolet, the visible, and the infrared. The sun's heat can be felt primarily by the UV, the visible, and the IR portions. So that tiny rainbow, silver, is the visible light spectrum where the human eye can detect. And when you talk about the energy from the sun, you have the infrared, the visible, and the ultraviolet. So these are the areas that we go after, trying to reflect the heat. And so there's 3 different pigments or characteristics. There's absorption, reflection, and transparency. And the transparency is what we talked about earlier with the aircraft, that it would bounce through and hit the second coating and be reflected. Reflection is right off the top, and absorption is certainly right into it's absorbed into the substrate. So measuring TRC, TE, and SR, IR measurements in the instruments. So there's the definitions in the ASTM testing. So total solar reflectivity is measured by 0.01 to 1. Then you have the thermal emitance. So That's how it's actually absorbed, how long the substrate is going to hold the heat, and then the solar reflective value. So they actually wanted just one value instead of having all these different values, because so galvanized metal was actually pretty shiny. So when this started, the galvanized metal was reflective, and everybody's like, well, it's reflective, so we're good. But the thermomittance out of that was actually making the steel very warm. So what that means is at night, the roofing panel wouldn't cool down, the substrate wouldn't cool down quickly. So all that heat was being absorbed, and it would take a long time to dissipate. So by combining all these together and using just one number, solar reflective index, you get one number, and then they're actually total solar reflective off of like a galvanized metal roof was in the high 60s, 70s. But then once you put in the other calculation, it actually dropped down to into the low 20s. So it was actually it holds so much heat. So the SR value increased. Now, a couple tools that are actually used to calculate TSR, TE, and SER. The CRC actually uses this particular tool, one of these, seen to the right. This one's actually a $35,000 tool. We have that actually in our lab, so where we test colors, because certainly architects and owners are looking for the SR value of different colors. And if you're looking to try to meet a spec, you can actually try to get into a color family, but use different pigments to actually bring that SR value up to where it needs to be for a spec or lower. And again, this is going to measure the heat that's held within the piece of metal. It's certainly $4,000, and then this photometer is $85,000, and this is actually, you can go through and look at the color at different ranges and pick up exactly where you can increase the performance of the coating. So when we talk about this, and we talked about the Raiders Stadium, you may have heard of this study. This was actually done with Oak Ridge Labs. But in Georgia, we actually had two roofs. They did two buildings together. And it's a case study of two schools that were actually the same colored roof. One had the reflective pigments and one did not. So they were actually built at the same time. They used, again, the same color family of roof. They weren't exactly the same color. They're very close to the same color. And for 1 year, the thermostats were actually not controlled inside the schools. That was controlled separately. So the superintendent of each school couldn't control how much energy was being used. So we did that for 1 year. And you can see the standard green had a TSR 12%, but the green with the IR reflective pigments was 29%. So after the first year, the savings was $8,000 difference after the first year on saving on between the electric. And actually, the gas was a little bit more because during the winter, those pigments are actually reflecting heat. So if you're reflecting heat during the winter, you're going to need more heat to probably heat up the school. So you can see the difference on the gas bill, but you can see certainly the difference on the electric. So that's projected over 35,000. Over 35 years, it's $281,000 in savings just by the color of the roof, right? Using the IR pigments. So that's what we talk about too with Raiders Stadium, Allegiant Stadium, right? Using that black, bringing down the energy consumption of the facility. And actually they went back a couple years later, and you can tell you know, the numbers are certainly different. They're projecting more of a savings of $500,000. You know, between 2006 and 2007 and 2003 and 4, you know, could have been hotter, could have been a drought, different climate changes. And you could also maybe infer that, you know, global heating, right, between those 3 or 4 years. But again, the savings is there, and that's real life. So next we're going to talk a little bit about polychromatic coatings and pigments. So how pigments actually change color. So we actually use silicone dioxide palettes to actually change and promote color changing pigments. So these pigments actually help create travel inside one color. So you may or may not remember, but it really started with the automotive industry. I mean, as those cars started coming out, they were purple, and they would change to green, to black, to purple again, and blue, depending on the angle. And it's funny, so when Chris talked about Allegiant Stadium being a race car and what their what they were looking for, their end result, and we talk about coatings and coating buildings, everything seems to start from the automotive side. So once the automotive starts changing, and you probably have seen this too with the flat matte black, it started with cars. I mean, Mercedes was one, BMW was the next, and now you're starting to see it everywhere. And so as that changes, right, we see everywhere, it starts to move into the building industry. So we're seeing matte black and matte colors specified a lot more just because of that trend. So the automotive tends to lead the way, and it certainly has with building components. So these are some of the projects that have been completed. In Scottsdale, Arizona, this actually travel colors from, as you can see, purple to green. So the color shifting is not for everybody. But we do have actually designers and architects that specialize in doing these types of colors for universities and for retail. But also we see it a lot in schools and hospitals. So this is Bloomsburg Center up in New York City. And that's actually perforated panels that turn. This is one that was just recently done in South Florida. Judy Ginshaft, she donated $20,000 to the University of Florida, but she actually went up to New York and Roosevelt Island and fell in love with the color, tweaked it out, and that was actually tweaked out in our lab for her. So that was actually just completed in South Florida. The neat thing is all these coatings come with the warranties, right, of long-term durability, 20 and 30 years. And that's just the warranty piece of it. Again, you can see some of the, Handel architects, they're known throughout the world. But colors and designing colors and trying to get the color right, and then incorporating those pigments in. Everybody wants to make a statement, and some you think, well, it's just a building, but when you're spending $2 billion, you want the building and the colors to reflect your passion. Again, another hospital. And we did the Dayton Hospital, Children's Hospital in Dayton, so. A few more. So, to review, we talked about the stadium PPG coatings. We talked a little bit about life cycle, long-term durability. We talked about how specifying the interior and the exterior coatings, and also the internal heat migration, and the different metallic and mica colors and the effect colors. So that's all we have for today. Does anybody have any questions?
like the regular, those two schools you did, one was paint one was reflective. I mean, is that a 10% cost increase in the paint?
No, it's so that's a great question. So when you talk about the price of the material, so an architect and an owner is not getting a price for the coatings, right? They're getting a price on that coated piece of metal installed, right? So the cost of the material actually, when you start figuring in the entire cost, it's less than 2%, right, on the increase, on the total cost of the whole fabrication. So that's actually a great question. I mean, you talk about the expensive coatings. I mean, we talk about painting on the Allegiant Stadium. We're talking about going back and touching up, but actually the cost is really small because the long-term durability that you're going to get and the energy savings out of it pay for itself. Becomes really insignificant. You know, when you can start to see the price increase on coatings, though, is when you get into those polychromatic pigments, because they take a little bit more skill to put on. They're more expensive and they're custom made. I mean, they're straight up custom. So you'll see those increase in price of 10 to 15%. You can actually see that at the end of it. But the owner's getting the custom color. So, and it's a special run. It's a good question.
I have a question for you. On the way that you said the grass slides out, so when the grass slides in, it's covering what? What's there originally that's getting covered?
Yeah, so the field tray in height's about 4 feet. So when the tray is in the out position, it's just a concrete floor. So it's just coming over. There's 13 rails that help guide the tray in, just kind of making sure it's in alignment. But it's just it's a concrete floor.
I encourage you to take a tour. I mean, I've been there a couple times, and it's just so interesting to see. I mean, I was like, they play on real grass, and we're there, and there's the field's all done, and it's AstroTurf, right? And they just bring that in, and it's so interesting.
How do you do the AstroTurf? The grass, you're putting in a big platform. How do you do that concrete with AstroTurf? Similar, or is it?
Different concept. I mean, the turf rolls out like carpet, so it's in 26 rolls. Roll it out, and then we kind of adhere it all together. And then there's a rubber padding underneath, just to lessen the impact of a fall or anything like that.
Take it back up.
Yep. Yeah.
You wear too many hats.
He's busy, isn't he? Yes.
What's driving the paint system in the roofing industry?
I'm sorry?
What is driving the paint systems, the type of paint systems in the roofing industry right now?
Well, we see a couple different things, right? I mean, some of it's long-term performance. So you start seeing a little bit of that PVDF, like driving long-term performance. But SMPs are actually very popular and becoming more popular, especially when you had some of the supply chain issues. We've seen an uptick in that also with different technologies being used. One thing that I see is on the roofing industry, and that's actually very broad, right? I mean, you go from residential, but then you go to commercial. But we see color trends that are pushing that into the different matte colors, and then also we see with the pigments, using the reflective pigments. So in some of the SMPs, we use the same pigments in that. So that product is actually picking up speed. It's always been popular. It's been an offset.
So are y'all producing counter-Valspar?
I'm sorry?
Are y'all producing counter-Valspar systems?
No, we're producing PPG Duranar Kynar. So that's our offset. That's what we produce. So we have Duranar 70%, which is, when you talk about Valspar, I think you're talking about their fluoropon system, their PVDF, which PVDF is the backbone, the resin, that gives you all that durability. So when you talk about that, right, we talk about resins, and this is a great question because you have some warranties and different factions out there that say, hey, we'll give you a longer warranty for a lesser product maybe when the long-term durability is not going to be there. You can kind of sway an architect or a building owner. "Oh, I'm getting a 40-year warranty," but if you start reading that fine print of the backbone of an SMP, you're not going to have the same long-term durability of that product. So typically you'll see like you get a 40-year warranty long-term on an SMP for film integrity. But if you start looking down back at that color and chalk, which is what you're going to see, right? It's important that not only it stay on the roof, right, but it looks good. So you don't want it to blow off, but you want it to look good long-term. So with the PVDF system, actually the warranties are more in line. They're typically 30, 35 years, but it's 35 years for the color and chalk too. So a couple things have been moving, right, with problems getting PVDF. The resin that's actually been used in electric car batteries was kind of difficult to get for a while. That seemed to have subsided. But you still have the SMP. I mean, it's people jump from one product line from PVDF, from Kynar coatings to FEVE, to polyesters to try to backfill that shortage. But I will tell you, the solar reflective pigments, though, are becoming a big deal with architects and engineers and building owners. Everybody's trying to save money, and everybody's trying to save not only money initially on the energy and the application, but they're also trying to save money long-term on maintenance and going back and redoing existing projects. Just like Chris, he's pretty busy. He doesn't want to go back and repaint the exterior of that building. That'd be a nightmare.
The sun always wins, so like how long is the warranty on the outside shell of the building? I mean, those panels that are factory made, factory coated, how long do you expect? Are we looking at 20 years, 30 years, 50 years on those panels? Any idea?
Yeah, so the warranty on those materials out there are typically 20 to 30 years. I don't know about the roof piece of it. I would imagine that pillow top roof
Won't last that long.
it probably won't last that long, but that's the warranty, right?
It lasts longer, yeah.
I mean, you're talking about the warranty. So when the warranty's up, the paint just doesn't quit, right? Unlike maybe our cell phones today, right? They just shut them off. So you talk about warranty, but the other piece of that is service life. So when you jump into service life, you can double that service life, depending on maintenance, right? And also depending on, right? I mean, if there's a sandstorm, I mean, you could sandblast the side of the building, so you might have to do some maintenance on that. But I mean, we go back with these air dry systems in New York, and we painted like one Penn Station in downtown in Manhattan. But we painted actually the NFL headquarters, 399 Park in Manhattan. Those buildings are 50 years old with PVDF, one of the original ones. And we've gone back with air dry systems. And the reason they were going back is more important. It wasn't about the coating failing. Actually, the coatings actually looked pretty good. We were able to go back on them. They weren't peeling. Had to do some scraping, right? But they were still going. The reason they looked worn, but it wasn't the end of the world, but they wanted to change color. They wanted to take black to silver, oddly enough, and then one was a silver, and they wanted to take it to a matte black. So your service life can easily be doubled.
50, 60 years at least. Good.
Yeah, I mean, we have panels of our product that are 40 years old, and they pass the AMA specifications or FGIA for color fade and chalk, 40 years. Facing South Florida, South Florida, 45 degrees. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but no, it's important. These are good questions. I mean, we talk about manufacturers. It's important to understand the backbone of the coating system, not just the warranty, but actually what are you getting and what type of performance do those resins typically provide. Sure, there's going to be an outlier, but typically if you're using a 70% PVDF coating like Duranar, I mean, you're going to get a service life of 50 plus years. So
We'll be open.
we will.
His protege can worry about that project.
It's interesting though, we're working on a project up in Minnesota, and the owner, he wants white, which is pretty good. Minnesota, you know, is pretty far away from the equator when you look at it. They want a 100-year material. And you know, that's I'm not writing a 100-year warranty, but we can probably, you know, get them a system that'll get them pretty close. And if we miss it by 15 years, you think he's really going to notice? Those are good questions. So, I mean, I really want to thank Chris for his time. He's extremely busy. I want to thank you for your time. And we also have a booth downstairs. We're sponsoring the Architect Experience. If you have any questions, you can see these guys with PPG on their shirts, or come by and see our experience. We have all the coatings you need, including that crazy Valspar stuff. We can tap that too. So, again, I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.